وإني من المسلمين اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا صالحا متقبلا يا رب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. SubhanAllah, the ayat that I was just reading in the second rak'ah are very powerful, very relevant to today's age. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says about the people that practice same-sex a'udhu billah actions, وَأَمْطَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ مَطَرًا فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down an adhab upon them, encompassing adhab that wiped them out from the face of this earth. And nowadays you have, subhanAllah, Muslims are afraid of standing up for what they believe in. But we should not have any sort of shyness when it comes to expressing our belief with LGBT practices. We are completely against their way of life, completely against their lifestyle, and there's nothing to hide from it as a Muslim. This is completely, it's in the Quran, okay? Anybody who comes and says, no, we should support their rights, we should, a'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Support your own rights. Support your own rights. Don't focus on theirs so much, okay? The chapter we're covering today, or sorry, not the chapter, we're going over a new book now, inshallah. This book is titled تعليم المتعلم في طريق التعلم, okay? The instruction of a student, okay? And how to be a student, okay? How to be a student of knowledge. Do you know about this book? Heard of it? Okay, it's by Burhan. The scholar is Burhanuddin al-Zarnuji. Zarnuji was a great Hanafi scholar. There's not much known about him through, books that talk about scholars and whatnot, like glossaries and stuff. But what we do know is that he was a student of Al-Imam al-Marghinani, who wrote a very famous text in Hanafi fiqh called Al-Hidayah. And he has authored many books in Hanafi fiqh. So Zarnuji was his student, direct student, which is a big deal, okay? So this book talks about what it means to be a student of knowledge and whatnot. Let's start with his introduction. Of course, Imam al-Zarnuji, he begins his book by saying, Alhamdulillah alladhi faddala bani Adam bil-ilmi wal-amala ala jami' al-alam was-salatu was-salamu ala Muhammadin sayyid al-arabi wal-ajami wa ala alihi wa ashabihi yanabi' al-ulumi wal-hikami. Okay? The whole purpose of this book is to talk about the adab of a student of knowledge. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives people, He elevates people sometimes. He might give someone more wealth than others. He might give someone more strength than others. He might give someone height, someone shorter, right? Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives people knowledge, okay? And so there is tafawut between people when it comes to knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ? Of course not. Do the people who have knowledge and the people who have knowledge, are they on the same level? They're not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't answer it, but of course it's understood from the ayah. So let's go into the introduction of the author. He said, I have observed in our day, many students of learning strive to attain knowledge. The guys in the back, please. You guys should be in the front. Come here. Ta'alu. Young guys, man. Wallah, I need to do something with you guys. I'm thinking about having a special class for you young guys, inshallah, very soon. We need to announce it, inshallah, soon. Yallah. I have observed in our day many students of learning striving to attain knowledge, but failing to do so. Don't be shy. If I call you out, this is good, okay? This is a point and a time to learn, so don't feel shy if I call you out. But failing to do so and are thus barred from its utility and fruition. This is because they have missed the proper methods of learning. This not only applies to learning Sharia, but always, anyone who misses the way of learning, as people who have learned in the past, will go astray and therefore will never reach their objective. A lot of us, maybe we might be studying Islam for the longest time and we wonder why are we at the same level? It's because we're not on the right path. And so the author will discuss the adab, the etiquettes that a student must have on this journey, okay? And it is my desire here to elucidate the proven methods of study that I myself had either read about in the books or heard from my learned and wise teachers. Again, the way you learn how to learn is by asking those that have already achieved it, right? It is my hope that those sincerely interested in this matter would pray for my deliverance and redemption on the Day of Judgment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Al-Imam al-Zarnuji exactly what he had asked for. The first chapter is about the nature and merit of knowledge and learning. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Talabul ilmi. So I have the Arabic text here and I have the English text, but for me to go over the English text or the Arabic text would mean I just have to constantly translate back and forth, and there's no reason for that unless it's a hadith or something of that nature. Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli Muslim. You all know this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, seeking knowledge, the quest for knowledge is incumbent upon every Muslim man and Muslim woman. Okay, but that does not mean that we have to seek all aspects of knowledge. Okay, but we do have to seek is ilmul hal. Okay, and كما يقال أفضل العلم علم الحال, the knowledge that relates to what a person needs. For example, you're a businessman, you have to know the rules of business. You're going for Hajj, you have to know the rules for Hajj. All of us as Muslims, we need to know the rules of tahara, wudu, sawm, if we're able, of course. And even if you're not able, you have to pay zakah for those that have wealth. All of these things, marriage for those that go into marriage, knowing the rules of nikah, knowing the rules, what are the huquq, what are the rules of divorce, what are the rules, sometimes people enter into parenthood with zero background. They didn't read a single book about what it means to raise a child properly. Wallahi, you wouldn't do anything in this life without prior knowledge. Could I sit here today and give you a lecture without having studied for the past decade? I couldn't have. Could you be in your fields and practices without having studied and getting your degrees? You couldn't have. So why is it that we think that, mashallah, when it comes to affairs of our religion, we could just go in without any knowledge, go into parenthood without any knowledge, go into marriage just because we love each other without any knowledge? No, you have to know, what is obligatory upon you when it comes to these things. Okay? So a believer, he must study what is incumbent upon him in this life. Okay? Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan, he was once asked, will you not compose a book on asceticism? He replied, I composed a book on commerce. He composed a book on buyur. What does that mean? It means that, zuhud, asceticism means to, perhaps you may have the dunya in your hand, but it's not in your heart, as an interpretation, right? He said, he was asked, why don't you write a book on zuhud? He said, I wrote a book on transaction, on buyur. What does that mean? What's the correlation? He was asked, why don't you write a book on zuhud, on asceticism? He said, I wrote a book on buyur. Meaning that a person, by abandoning what is haram and sticking to what is halal, that is the asceticism, you see? So a person must seek that knowledge, what is incumbent upon him, based off of his day-to-day things. Of course, the nobility of learning is not foreign to anyone. It is something that is known to all of mankind. When it comes to comparing us to animals, animals also, they are associated with several virtues. Valor, courage, strength, generosity, compassion. Even animals have these qualities, but there's one thing that animals do not have. It's the merit of knowledge. The human being was given that status because of knowledge. Adam alayhi salam was given a status over the angels because of وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءِ, because of ilm. You see? So even Adam alayhi salam and humans were given preference and merit over other animals because of that fact that we are able to learn in a way that no other animal can. And likewise, knowledge, it impacts all of the other human characteristics. Generosity, avarice, cowardice, courage, arrogance and humility, chastity. All of these things, you have to learn them as well in order for you, to function in society. You have to learn these things, like learning the akhlaq. You know how we just covered the book Min Adab al-Islam by Sheikh Abdul Fattah. Learning these things are also compulsory upon a person. As for learning the situations that only arise in certain occasions, then it is a collective duty. For example, does everyone here need to know how to lead Salatul Janazah? No. Does the Imam have to know? Yes. Right? Does everyone here need to know how, the detailed rulings about buyur? No. But someone has to do it. There has to be one person that fulfills the obligation. So now the author is talking about the difference between fard ayn, which is individual obligation that all of us have, tahara salah, fard kifaya, that if one of us does, then it falls on everyone else. For example, if one person knows this, we're able to do it, that'd be enough, inshallah. And so the Shaykh, he continues, he says, but knowledge of matters affecting a person only in certain occasions, this holds a position equal to medicine, which is needed only at stipulated times. But not, and then the Shaykh mentions, he talks about astrology, saying, knowledge of astrology holds a position equivalent to disease. Its study is prohibited because it is harmful and brings no benefit. It is impossible to flee from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His dispensation, meaning that the study of astrology is something that you would consider not allowed, not permissible. Astrology, if I was born in such and such time, then I would have certain qualities. So something like studying astrology is not permitted. Now he's talking about what isn't permitted from knowledge, because its asl is wrong. But astronomy is permissible, of course, to study. So every Muslim is expected to occupy himself at all times with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His invocation and supplication, reading Quran, giving charity, and all of these things. The Shaykh then continues to say that there are worldly matters that are, of course, obligatory for us to study as well. If one person does it, for example, ilm al-tib. If one person is a doctor amongst the community, then khalas, he's fulfilled the obligation of medicine. Now, if another person is an engineer, he fulfills that fard kifaya. If another person does this, does that, then all of it falls on the community, so long as there's one person that does it. Okay. Abu Hanifa, especially talking about fiqh, he said, "Al-fiqhu ma'rifatu nafs ma laha wa ma 'alayha, wa qala mal ilmu illa lil 'amali bih." Abu Hanifa, he said the purpose, he said fiqh is a person's knowledge of his rights, of his own rights, and the duties that he has on others. You see? So every person must know the rights that he has and the duties he has to fulfill. And then he continues to say the purpose of learning is to act by it, while the purpose of action is to abandon the fleeting things for what lasts forever. Meaning that the reason why we learn is why? Why do we learn? To act. The purpose of knowledge is to what? To act. And so the best thing that you could be studying the moment of is what you could do amal of. You see? For example, going for Hajj, study Hajj. It's time for zakat, learn zakat. It's time for udhiyah. Saturday I'm going to give a class on udhiyah. You see? So anytime, the reason we learn is so that we could practice it, not just so that we just store our heads with information, but rather so that we learn and then we implement it. That's why we have to also learn fiqh of tahara and salah. And so Abu Hanifa, he continues to say, so one must never be heedless of his soul or of what benefits or harms it in this life and the next. Hence, man must seek out what is useful whilst avoiding what is harmful, lest his intelligence and his knowledge become weapons against him. Sometimes people, if they learn for the wrong reason, or if they learn for an intention other than doing action with it, then perhaps that knowledge could be a hujjah and a proof against him, and even be a weapon that is used against him. You see? So that's why it's important to also clear our intentions when it comes to seeking knowledge. Inshallah, next week I'll go over the intention behind seeking knowledge, and then the week after will be a juicy week because we'll talk about choosing the knowledge that we have to seek, finding a teacher and a mentor in life, and having peers that will also aid you on that journey. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بارك الله فيكم.